Okay, hi everyone. Today I am sitting with my colleague, Caeul, for a special interview for C4DISC. My name is Mia Ritchie. I am a publisher at Wiley, but I'm here today in my capacity as the co-chair for the Communications and Outreach Committee for C4DISC. For those of you that's not familiar with C4DISC, it is the Coalition for Diversity and Inclusion in Scholarly Communications. In celebration of the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month here in the US, we are taking some time today to meet with API colleagues in the US and around the world who's working in scholarly communications in the hopes of highlighting the diversity and heritage of our community, and particularly those that are working in efforts around diversity and inclusion. So with that, Caeul, thank you so much for being here.
For having me.
If I can ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at South Press.
Yes, sure. Hi, my name is Caeul Lim, as Mia said. I am a scientific editor at South Press, which is based in Cambridge, but also across the world. And I am also the South Press's newest Inclusion and Diversity Officer, and I oversee a lot about initiatives around inclusion and diversity in our scientific committee and in scientific communications.
Great, thank you for that. I'm so excited to talk to you today. I've been hearing a lot about, all the efforts around inclusion and diversity at South Press and Elsevier in general. So I hope we could talk about that a little bit today. But first, I wanted to ask you about what brought you to the scholarly communications industry? And if I can ask, what do you love the most about your job?
Sure. So I moved from bench science, I'm a bench scientist, to scientific publishing about 3 years ago because I enjoyed reading and thinking broadly about science and not just doing the experiments. And scientific publishing and communication allows me to do just that. And I think what I continue to love the most about my job is that I am continuously learning more about different fields of studies. But also because scholarly communication is such an integral part in the research community and a researcher's life, I feel like I can continue to support my professional community from the sides and continuing to do so.
Great. Well, we could have another conversation about working from the bench, to publishing. That sounds like another interview, I think. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, next question. We have 5 questions for you today. So this one is, as I mentioned, this is about, celebrating the Asian and Pacific Islander community. What do you hope to see for the API community working in the scholarly communications? And you can talk about why you're involved in DEI activities and initiatives, or just general hopes on what you think we can do to make scholarly communications, more diverse, equitable, and inclusive.
Sure. So I feel as an Asian myself that the API community in scholarly communications and in publishing is at the same time in a pretty privileged position for being at the table of a decision making, and yet remaining for the large part quite invisible and unheard as is a shared Asian experience. So I really feel like we are at a place as a community, we can really drive change towards greater inclusion, diversity, and equity by speaking up against these barriers that we see and that we both benefit and are harmed from. And so I feel like we can really advocate from a lot of the sides. And the reason I'm involved in DEI activities is that I also felt for a while that I wasn't quite sure where my place was, where I felt more comfortable being, in the sideline and being silent. But I wanted to, in my position, be more intentional in some of the decisions we're making as a scholarly communication, as a publishing company, And as I mentioned in my previous question, I feel like we are supporting a larger community, but we have maybe in the past tend to do that a bit more in a passive way, but we can be more intentional in the language you use, for example, or the people we choose to elevate, and take more responsibility and have more accountability in what we publish and how we communicate and how we choose to do so.
That's wonderful. I co-sign all of that. I feel it all resonates to me a lot, and what you said about kind of finding your place in all of this is I feel the same way. I think to many, especially in the Asian community, you know, the last 12 months, a lot of us have gone through kind of some identity and like racial reckoning and wanting to advocate and do more and finding a place to do that. And I look at, you know, my job and this industry as one of the spheres of influence that we could work in. So what you said, you know, I really feel that. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so as I mentioned before, May is API Heritage Month in the US, of course, recognizing that, you know, we celebrate API colleagues from around the world. I know you're not a US citizen. I'm not either. I'm an Indonesian immigrant, an Indonesian citizen, but I would love if you would just spend a minute talking about what your, you know, Asian heritage means to you.
Yeah, so I am originally from South Korea, but I actually did not grow up in South Korea. I grew up, I spent most of my formative years in Mauritania, which is in Africa. And right now, I do not also live in South Korea. And yet, you know, because of the way I look, it is one of the most identifiable aspects about myself. And for a while growing up, I think I've wanted to establish myself independently of my heritage. I did not want to represent really my country, my culture, or, you know, the common trope of Asians honoring your parents. So I think there was actually a complex, you know, how I feel about my API heritage. But as the years have passed, I think I've learned to really accept, but also be proud that while my Asian heritage does not define who I am, it does complete the person that I am. And it's hard to know me without knowing, you know, where my South Korean heritage. So it's, again, not the only defining part of me, but it's an integral, again, part of who I am and what I do on a day-to-day basis now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Again, I really resonate with that as well. I think, you know, for me, moving here as an immigrant and you're wanting to assimilate and all of that, and also what you said about, you know, with my parents, it's the same way. I think growing up, I kind of reject a lot of it, you know, especially as an immigrant and wanting not to be associated with that, whether it's like rebelling against some of the common tropes and all of that. But now realizing as an adult and finding a place to kind of recognize that is a big part of me, you know, and how do I make that fit and celebrate all the good and bad that comes with it.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So next question. So as part of the celebration of the API Heritage Month, can you share some of your favorite Asian or Pacific Islander movies or books and what you like about them?
Yes, I actually recently finished reading Minor Feelings. I actually have it right next to you. Minor Feelings by Kathy Park Hong. And it was a book where I was just, you know, highlighting so many passages because I felt like there were many moments where I felt seen and heard by her writing. It describes so clearly the complex feelings that I just mentioned about my own heritage, what it means to be Asian when we discuss racial inequalities, again, by being both perpetrators and victims of systemic oppression. But it's also a book about an American girl, an artist that is not, again, solely defined by her heritage. So there were so many great passages, and it's really, really recommend for anyone who wants to learn about what it feels like to be of API heritage, but also a great book.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's actually on my list. I have the book. I have not started. I also just recently got it. And after talking to so many people about their recommendations, I feel like that book, Minor Feelings, is like a required reading now.
Yes. For sure.
Great. Thank you for the recommendation. And lastly, if I can ask you if there's an organization that you are particularly, you know, passionate about that, you know, you want to recommend to support.
Yes. So I don't know if it would be what exactly we're thinking, but I did want to recognize that, you know, our colleagues and friends and families in India are still very much suffering under the COVID crisis. And there are lots of great foundations and organizations supporting and delivering oxygens and, you know, helping the country get back to its feet. So I would, you know, I can name a couple. For example, there's a foundation called the Akshaya Patra Foundation, which is mostly known for its school lunch programs across India, but now also starting COVID-19 relief services So really supporting low-income groups in India. There's also the British Asian Trust, which is an international development organization delivering high-quality programs in South Asia, and again with a more specific oxygen delivery for India in emergency. So those are the couple of the organizations I would like to mention while I have the platform.
Great, thank you for sharing that. After our meeting today, I will make sure to get the details and get the names and the links from you, and we will post it on the C4DISC website with this video, so everyone can see, along with the book that you recommended earlier. Well, I think that's the time that we have today. As always, I'm always past the 5 minutes that I intended to do, but this is wonderful. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, thanks again. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, great. I'm going to stop recording now.
Sounds good.